come and join this panel. So, Ajay, can I give it to you? Yeah? So, ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy this discussion. This is going to be very enriching.
Hello. Good morning, welcome everybody. It's nice to see all of you, especially the young faces, because they're the ones who are going to be involved in startups more than anybody else. I guess startups is for people who are starting up in life. So thanks for all coming, and I'm now going to hand over the mic to Sudarshan to kick it off, because he's taught in many colleges subjects in business, and I think you'll be the right person to throw questions. You know, that's what your teacher does, throw questions at you. So over to you, Sudarshan.
Okay, thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Before I throw questions, since he's already typecast me into a role, I'll start with a very small lecture. Okay, that's about how did I get into a startup. You know, when I started my business, I wasn't called a startup. We were serving a lot of dot-coms. And one fine day, a lot of dot-coms crashed. So our own survival was at stake. That's when we realized that we are a startup. Because till then, life was hunky-dory, money was coming in, there was no problem. And then we said, okay, we need to look at how do we go about business, what do we do, etc., etc. So startup, in that sense of the term, again, a personal experience is a millennium term, because in those days, if you were educated as an engineer or if you were educated as an accountant, you could get employed at, depending on your region, either the government, okay, or Tatas, Birlas, Modis, or maybe TVS, or Kirloskar, if I may just add. One needed machines, one needed all the infrastructure to be starting business. Okay, millennium or internet brought the great leveler, which was called an idea. Okay, so ideas made you start businesses. You didn't need infrastructure. And like people say, pick up any book, you'll get so many of these stories of garage startup, laptop startup, coffee shop startup, etc., etc. Okay, so the question that I'm going to throw to the panel is, the first one is that what does a startup really mean? You know, I mean, in terms of a clarification, what does a startup really mean?
Shall I start?
Yes.
I would like to take the concept of idea. We all have ideas, and in America they say ideas are a dime a dozen, which means everyone has hundreds of ideas. Actually, what people need is not an idea, they need an opportunity. An opportunity is an idea that's actually something that can turn into a profitable business. So first you need an opportunity. If you have a great opportunity, you can attract the team and the money that you need. If you have a lousy opportunity, it doesn't matter how much money you throw into it and how hard you work, you won't succeed. Okay? So where do you get this great opportunity? Okay. If you talk to experienced seed fund investors, angel investors, they'll tell you a few points. And I have talked to people, I've met a lot of startups, and I've talked to a lot of investors. An important place to find a great opportunity is a personal pain point. Okay, what is it that really bothers you? What is a real pain in your life? Can it be translated into a business? Okay, can you attract a team to take that forward? Is it something relevant to others? That's a great source of opportunity for a young startup. Yeah, I would say avoid copying. Avoid just saying there's other people doing it, I'm going to jump in. Avoid copying, because that's a pretty sure route to failure. Look for something that really bothers you.
Okay. Ajay?
I'd like you to add.
Hello. So I can speak from my own experience answering that question about startups. Startups have had different meanings at different points of time. The latest one is a government meaning, whatever it is. They have now nomenclatured startup as something.
Yes.
But going back in life, everybody has always been a startup. There have always been startups. The word was not there. So my own time as a startup came just 30 years, 20 years back. I've been working for 40 years. First 20 years was with my dad, and then there was a breakup, so I became a startup. On my own, I moved from textiles to technology, and that was quite a big leap in faith. And that was sometime in the 90s. And then there was the time when the younger people won't have heard of this. And there was something called eyeballs, you know. You were as big as the number of eyeballs you had. But there was no money coming in. It was simply eyeballs, and you were spending cash. So everybody who did that perished, like the startups perishing now, but for different reasons. In 2000, when I started the company, it was a startup again. I'm saying why I started a company because I've failed twice, I've gone bankrupt twice, and that's a different story. I did a TED talk once about 6 months back. The wording there was celebrating failure. So I always say now, celebrate your failures, and I say that aim to fail. Whenever you do a startup, aim to fail as soon as you can, because by then, and that will give you the real experience for your long term. So startup is a good word, and one thing lacking today, and I wish it was here, was a startup on our panel. A young guy with a startup, but fine, we are okay with that.
Yeah, so about, let's say 20 years ago when you started, you broke off and you started fresh. And as against somebody from here starts a fresh business. So then and now, what's the difference? You know, is it, I would imagine, just one thing which comes to my mind is technology. All startups today have technology as a major foundation. That makes all the difference in the business which is already going on and the business which is going to be created in the startup. So what's your view on that?
So in my time, there was nobody had heard of investments, VCs, or cloud funding, and all those things, or crowdfunding, if you want that. It all came after 2000. But it is the best time to start up now for a youngster. The environment is there. The government is behind you. At my time, if you went to the bank for a loan, they said, what collateral do you have? Do you have a flat? I said, no. Do you have any property? I said, no. They said, then what have you come here for? But you don't need it anymore. There are people waiting to, or were waiting till a year back, to fund anything that was there. You know, like picking up any crawling insect. But people have become more cautious. They've learned these ropes, but yet it remains the best time for a startup. Go for it. I go very often to colleges to talk to management students, and I tell them, go for it. Don't hesitate. Just jump in. Just dive.
Yeah, so that's the second major difference we have highlighted in the startups of then and now, that you have easy funding available, which was never there before. So this is a great opportunity for anybody who wants to start fresh.
Yeah.
I don't think funding is easy, to be honest with you. If you look at any given sector, there's a company called Traxon in India, which is itself a startup that tracks every startup in India. I would say only about 10% at most get any funding at all. And of those, a very small percentage actually move from angel funding or seed funding to a Series A funding. So it's very important that you design your startup from the beginning with investors in mind. And investors like to see a few things. First of all, they want to see that your business isn't just a copy of 50 other guys, which is very common in India. They want to see something that's unique and very relevant to a very large potential group of customers. They want to see a team. They want to see a team of people, not just one entrepreneur, but they want to see a team of at least 2 or 3 people who have complementary skills and a commitment to doing them, and also a team of people who get along with each other, so you won't fight at the first hiccup and break up. So they want to see these 2 at a minimum, yeah?
Okay. I'll come to the second part. You know, what are the typical qualities that one needs to possess beyond idea, you know, to be a startup? I mean, right from being in the game, what are the qualities, if one can typically list them?
For me, the first thing is you must have passion for what you're doing, because it's going to be 1,000 times more difficult than you imagine. And you must have tremendous ability to persist and be flexible. Just as Vikash has found success after a couple failures, all entrepreneurs will go through terrible, tough times, and you must be able to persist.
And the best part is that in the past, if you failed, there's nobody to help you. Banks would run away further from you. And today, if you fail, it doesn't matter. It does matter, but if you have plenty of eyeballs, or if you have plenty of people registered with you on your site or whatever, then you still got it going. So I think that's a major difference. So we have a lot of nice, interesting points by Mr. Richard and Mr. Vikas, and of course Sudarshan. So if there's any further statement any of you would like to make, how much time do we have? 10 minutes? We can keep on going the way it's, Sure, okay.
So the question was what qualities you need to have. I don't think you need to have any qualities. All that you need to have is persistence. Just be bold. You're going to come against, the moment you do a startup, do a company, you're already into turbulent air. And you have to sail through that period anyhow till you get onto the smoother path. So don't bother about your qualifications. Just have your own idea, research it well, have the passion to do it, as somebody said. Passion is very important. You need to want to get up first thing in the morning and get to work. You need to do that. You don't want to lie in bed and say, oh no, what have I got into? So it's that and the persistence for the downtimes when they come. And I bet you that they're going to be there. So just go on without stopping. Don't look back. Just look ahead.
Okay, the question that I would like to put is, perhaps I'm rushing a little here, but idea, okay, taken for granted, but from an investor perspective, because I'm coming into the investor, okay, what's the revenue model? How do companies look at the revenue? Startups look at revenue models per se.
I think it depends what business you're looking at. But in a typical internet business, the revenue model doesn't necessarily have to be immediately clear. I think the most important thing is that you have the ability to acquire a lot of eyeballs. I think, as Ajay mentioned, eyeballs are still a currency. So if you can do a business that can acquire a lot of eyeballs at a reasonable cost, and that's also very important, then generally it's considered that you will figure out a monetization strategy eventually. Yeah. Take an example of Facebook. Facebook didn't really have a monetization strategy for several years, okay, after it started, but it acquired millions of eyeballs and therefore was able to attract lots of funding. And that's still very important. However, you eventually have to figure this out, but maybe not right away.
Okay.
I think the revenue model, depends on business to business. Lately, what's been happening is banks have been replaced by high net worth individuals who want to invest their funds. It's like gambling, because out of 10 startups, maybe 1 or 2 really make it. So, and people are fond of gambling. So I see this phenomenon of startups as people who can indulge in their gambling, which is a very basic instinct of human beings to gamble. And I think that's what's happening. People are gambling their money away. And the other part is that there are funds which are doing the gambling for you. So they put it in 10 different places, and one does make it, and eventually you hope you do make your money. Thanks.
Yeah.
The question was whether revenue model?
What is the, how does one articulate the revenue model? I mean, for a startup especially.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you need to have a vision towards the revenue. You may not have the revenue right away, like Richard said, Facebook didn't have any revenue for years and years, but that was the strategy of Facebook. The strategy was to get into revenue later when they had millions and now billion eyeballs. So that's fine, as long as you know clearly what your model of business is and where the money will come in and when it will go out and from where it will come in. So they did get the funding. It may not have been a revenue model, it was a funding model, and it worked for them. But that worked for only 1 or 2 companies in the world. In the rest of the world, you have to think cents and dollars. Very key thing is that when people get funding, they blow it up because they don't have that experience. They think it'll keep on coming. It doesn't just keep on coming. Especially now, it's so difficult to refund anything. The biggest of companies, you must have read in the last couple of days in the papers, I won't name it, they're shutting down because even having grown so big, they're unable to refund it. And they're going to be shutting down very soon. They've already started rewinding. So, and that is one thing. The other is, you are never going to stick to your original model. Remember that. It is going to change. You start up with an idea, you keep on shifting, and it is those people who welcome change who survive the long term.
Okay, lately we have a lot of youngsters who have a lot of content, who want to do like a lot of different things. They want to do a fashion blog, they want to do a medical blog, want to do a health blog, and they want to do this little startup of their own. You know, it's not which calls for big bucks, it's called for big disruption. It's just a new way of presenting a feature, a fashion or a film blog or something.
Okay.
And they are depending on advertising for that. So Sudarshan, could you tell us, like you're more experienced in that. So if any of them want to start a blog, can they depend on ad revenues?
Ad revenues is not seen as a revenue model per se, because it is very purely dependent on numbers. You know, so there are people who are able to get something viral. Okay, the most important thing here is sustainability, because that's how magazines or print or everything has been surviving. You know, because I have n number of readers, I have y number of advertisers, and that is how I survive. Whether I'm India Today, whether I'm a B2B publication like a film magazine or anything like that, I get advertisers. Okay, why will an advertiser come to a medium which is not audited? It's just, I have to go on Alexa score if you're a blog. Okay, I have to go on other kind of numbers if you're a blog. So to me as a potential investor or a marketeer, okay, it doesn't make meaning to perhaps put money here in terms of, so the sustainability becomes very important, which is where I'll come to my perhaps the second last question. If I look at startups or any business per se, I look at them in three stages. The first stage being survival, the second stage being growth, and the third stage being profitability. Okay. Now, given this survival, growth, and profitability, which stage do you think is ripe enough to go and approach an investor, and what does the investor look for in the startup?
Depends on how much money you need. You know, that
Okay.
your question would depend on that, right?
But between survival, growth, and profitability, I mean, which gives me a better leverage to ask for money?
I think for most startups, it's simply survival and growth. I don't think profitability enters into the picture for
Okay.
with investors at the beginning, in either the seed phase or the Series A or B, depending. I think what investors are really looking for is something that can be big. Remember that as one of you mentioned, a very small percentage of startups succeed. So let's say that a fund is putting seed money into a startup. They only expect at most 1 out of 10 of these investments to actually pay off. And they're going to make most of their money 1 out of 100. Okay? They're going to look for big successes to pay off, to make up for all the failures. So their prime thing is they're looking, of course, for good teams. They're looking for smart people. They're looking for something that can scale up large. They can be very, very big, so that it can attract the next round of funding at a higher multiple and go on to higher rounds of funding. It doesn't matter necessarily whether there's profit during those times, but there must be a view toward a large scale and a future profit. That's the most important thing to invest in.
Very, very well taken and very
Mr.
beautifully
Vikas.
highlighted.
Your views?
Anything?
So again, I fall back on my own experiences, is that it took us 5 years into the company to get our first VC from US. And another 2 years later, one more VC, and then we didn't need it. What kept us going, and is something that I tell everybody, is that conserve cash. Don't throw it out when it is coming in. Don't think that it's going to be coming in forever. Even now, we have become a multinational with 9 subsidiaries around the world, but we still act and work like a startup. We're extremely conscious of every rupee or dollar that is spent going out of the company. Yes, spend where necessary, but don't blow up. Thank you.
Okay. What is it that a startup actually needs to give as a hook to an investor?
I think we're repeating questions a bit.
Just a kind of a hook.
As I said before, an investor is looking for a great opportunity that's unique, that 50 other people aren't doing, with a gigantic potential scale. He's looking for a team that actually cares about the concept, that has complementary skills, that will stick to it. They want really good founders, the kind of people who they believe will stick to it, and as Vikash said, will be persistent as hell, tenacious, super tenacious, and flexible to change course as they go along, because the original concept never works.
Okay.
Okay, that's it.
Great. So now we throw the floor open for questions and answers. Anybody have the question? Sure. Please. Would you like to?
Good morning, panel. I have 3 questions. The first one being, are startups now an index of country's economic growth? Second, as India embraces the startup culture, not many startups see the light of the day. I want the answer in terms of Indian economy. What stops Indian economy to embrace so many startups? As Sir just said, not many startups be so successful. And the third question being, when does a startup is no longer a startup? When does it become a full-fledged business?
I can start. Okay, I think there are lots of startups in India, but a lot of them are not getting funding. I think one reason is that a lot of Indian entrepreneurs think they can just copy an American model and succeed here. Okay, which generally doesn't work. Okay, first of all, if you're trying to compete against Facebook and Google, you're probably going to fail. You should look for models that are Indian. Okay, they aren't just copies of an American model. There's something that can actually work here and take this market. Don't think you can necessarily compete globally, but start here and look for something that works here and that can get a scale here. Also, don't overestimate your market. Most people in India don't look like you. Okay? Be very realistic about what you're doing. A lot of people are not. Also, don't just copy everyone else. There's a real tendency in India to copy. Okay, if you have 50 guys doing the same thing, you're probably not going to succeed.
Beautiful. Thanks.
To just answer or mix up your questions, I personally believe that a startup should not have a business model which ends at funding. So the startup should not set up to get funding. Don't throw yourself out at the VCs. Let me tell you, they are much smarter than you are. At any given time, a VC is much smarter. He is not listening to your pitch. He is listening to how you pitch. He is trying to judge what sort of guy you are, not how smart you are or how intelligent you are, how much passion you have, how long lasting you're going to be. Because it's a long ride, understand that. Starting a company doesn't end in 1 year, doesn't end at funding. It's just the beginning. So, you want to set up a company? Yes, please go ahead and do it. But do it for the business, not for the funding.
Just a few words. Vikash has put you inside the mind of a VC. That's really great. Thank
I
you.
want to add one more thing. Don't start a business to make money. If you want to make money, go get a job. Okay? No funding, no funder is going to give you money because you want to make money. Okay? And you're going to fail if you just go into it to make money. Okay? Do it because you care about what you're doing. You have to have tremendous passion, as Vikash said. It's really tough. Okay?
And let me add to that, the money will come. Do a good job. Be happy about what you're working on. Get your own results. Again, as I said, don't go for the funding. It's out there. It's going to find you. You don't need to find money.
I have attended a lot of startup sessions, but I think in this is the one single most session where the maximum pearls of wisdoms have been scattered all over. It's wonderful.
See,
Wonderful.
everyone got carried away by Hotmail and India World. You know, the early part of the startup, because, you know, all that I needed was a .com name. You know, the second part when we got carried away was perhaps the e-commerce world. You know, so all that you needed was to start an e-shop. Okay, and everybody thought that people will come lining up and your bank account will start ringing. Nobody saw the hard work that behind those e-shops. I mean, what stops me from mimicking or copying a Flipkart or a Snapdeal today? There are so many. Okay, but yet it's only those, I mean, every sector you can count not more than 2 names. There may be 20 sites. You know, so that's the...
Any more questions?
Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Priyank. I am running 3 startups right now, 3 businesses. All of them are into the non-IT sector. In India, what I find is the investors tend to be inclined in investing in the IT sector companies only. Why is that happening in India? First question. Second is big companies like Flipkart or any other companies. There was a survey done and had come in the Economic Times saying that only Book My Show is making a profit of around 3.5 CR. That's it. No other company is making profit, and investors are just pumping in money. So what is the scenario happening there? That is my question to you.
First of all, to address your first question, there are certainly investors who are investing in non-IT businesses. So I've seen it, and it is possible to get money for non-IT businesses. Unfortunately, though, a lot of investors, I mean, you know, a lot of people want to make their companies look like a tech company, so they'll get a higher multiple, or they think they'll get more money. And often that's the wrong thing. If you have a good business model or you have a great concept that you believe is good and it's not IT, don't try to make it IT to suit the investors. Stick to what you got. That's my belief. There are people who can give you money. That's one. And the second is, why are so many of these companies not making money? A lot of them have flawed business models. And unfortunately, with, you see, the whole venture capital system is set up as a bigger fool theory. The venture capitalist gives money on the hope that a PE will then buy him out and go out to a higher multiple, and they all want to exit. Nobody's looking long term. It's all a 5-7 year exit. They're all looking for a bigger fool to buy more equity after them. Okay, so unfortunately, it's not necessarily designed around good business models. Okay, in my own view, Flipkart is going to be destroyed by Amazon. Okay, it's inevitable. And it took Book My Show 20 years to make money. Do you know that?
One thing I want to add, I'll just come to your question. Give me a minute. Something that has not yet come up in this discussion and that is very important for any startup or for any businessman is you got to be honest to the core. You yourself have to be completely honest. Corporate governance is very important. Don't try to use government tax money as your working capital. When you have to pay tax, pay it. When you have to deal with anybody, be completely honest to yourself and to the person you're working with. In the long run, that's going to stand you very well. If you try to cut corners, if you try to make a sharp buck, it's going to get back to you very badly. So this is something I always talk about whenever I'm on a panel. That is very important for any startup to first not think that they can get away with anything. That get away word is not good. Be straight to the face, be honest, and your business will do much better in the long run.
Yes, doctor?
Good morning, gentlemen. It's just a comment, if I may be allowed to make. It's not a query. We've spoken about values like integrity, honesty, and passion to the work and determination to succeed. I'd just like to add, because from my personal experience of counseling with patients who come to me, apart from all these issues, very much in the Indian culture that is present is a tendency to compare your performance with the other individual and another business or another setup. And I think it would be so necessary for each one of us to evaluate our own performance, compare it with our own previous past performance and move ahead, rather than comparing it with anybody else, because I think a lot of frustration, anger and depression sets in, and I think that would be very necessary for any startup, any business organization. Thank you.
Sure, thanks. Well then, thank you everybody, and we had a good time answering. Yes, any other questions? One more opportunity. Anybody who's starting up? Okay, thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. That was a wonderful input. And I'm sure we all had wonderful inputs out of this panel discussion. I would invite Smita on stage to felicitate our guests.